Hi, this is Vladimir Štimac from Anadolu Efes. You're listening Sweet 16, best podcast out there.
Christmas has come and gone, but there weren't miracles for some sides, while the resurrection continues for a couple of unlikely contenders. It's all this plus a look ahead to what's going to happen in the next round of action in the last Sweet 16 of 2017. Tune in.
Hello and welcome to the final episode of 2017 here on Sweet 16. As always, I'm Moshe from Team Sky, with me my great friends and co-host that, help this show become what it is and what we're all about. Quite goofy, quite right on time, but most of all, we like the different locations. So, hi Emmett, hi Aris, hi guys, how are you doing?
Greetings from Dublin, where I had a relaxing time once I got out of my parents' house, back at my apartment watching the NBA. So pretty good Christmas all around though, and managed to actually have a reasonably early start the day after to actually recover. And weather's been decent enough in Dublin as well, so not too wet in Christmas. We could actually walk around and stuff. Aris, how's it hanging out in Athens?
And hello from Athens. It's summertime in here, but we are also in a festive mood, and we're just trying to recover from Christmas dinner.
And before we get into the meat of the show, telling you what's happening, as always, don't forget to subscribe. The best way to keep in touch with us and to get the show as soon as it comes out is to subscribe on SoundCloud. If you're listening on SoundCloud, which most of you are, the link is there. If you're watching on YouTube, the link will be below the video. Go there, subscribe. It's the fastest way to get it every time. But coming up in this show, 4-minute warning, we've got a few goodbyes to say to teams who we are calling it a season for them in EuroLeague, saying there is no point in them caring anymore. We're being that morbid. Looking to sides for whom life is going either great or somehow coming back. And a couple of teams who are definitely on the brink of being relevant through the rest of the season. And then we'll be going on to the Scouts Notebook, and by we I mean not really me. This will be more of a Moshe on our side because I saw so little action last week. So it'll be Corey Higgins and Togo Shingalia getting the special attention there. Then in the Coach's Playbook, GM for a day, because Hanukkah is a time of miracles, so is Christmas in a way. We're going to be talking about the joy and how to bring joy and miracles to teams. We'll be GMs for a day, each of us. And finally, of course, our predictions as always, and picking our games of the week. And so to kick us all off, the continuingly, hilariously, inaccurately named 4-minute warning. And Moshe, we've got to start off with the teams who just are losing relevancy by the game. We haven't hit the halfway mark yet. We're only 14 games into the season, but already Efes, Barcelona, Valencia, and Milano all in double-digit losses. Now, Milano were never really seen as a playoff contender by most. Valencia were my pick, me being cool, but most people would have not agreed with me on that one. Efes, everybody figured they'd at least be a playoff contender for the long run through the season. But I think the biggest disappointment of the lot by quite a margin has got to be Barcelona, who came into this season and still on paper have a Final Four roster. And, it's like, what can I say? It's like, I'm all out of love and we're so lost without them. So, it's like, Moshe, what's happened? We'll start with the biggest disappointment, Barcelona. We know this show has become the Barcelona What's Going On show in some weeks. But, last week, they stank the joint up again on the double. What on earth is going on here? Because it's not like last year you can blame injuries. It's not like, we can talk about betting in at this stage. We're 14 games into the regular season, plus a substantial chunk of the ACV. They've had enough time to get used to each other. Is it just clearly a lack of overall vision in how this roster was shaped, while the talent total, so to speak, is right, the talent balance is wrong?
Before I answer that, and I do have an answer for what you just asked me regarding Barcelona, guys, I would like you to join me in what has to be said and done. Well, not done, mostly said. Brought to you by Air Supply.
My heart is so disguised.
I just can't live a lie anymore.
I would rather hurt myself
than to ever make you cry.
There's nothing left to try.
Thought it's gonna hurt us both.
There's no other way than to say goodbye.
And that musical interlude is New Year's gift or piece of torment to our listeners? You decide. Let us know in the comments below or on the internet and social media. But Moshe, getting back to the actual question, Barcelona, what on earth has gone wrong? Like just everything, or what? Like what is left to say apart from goodbye to Barcelona, really? Because we've talked about them so freaking much.
Well, I mean, I'm going to surprise you. It didn't start this year. It didn't start even last year. It all started when they've lost Satoransky, Hezonja, and Abrinas. They've lost three guys that were supposed to be the future of the club to a certain extent for, let's say the next couple of years, and they left way too early than what I think the club anticipated, and in a way that started, I think, some sort of a snowball that looked, in a way it wasn't that it didn't look as big and as complicated, and it looked like they could have handled the crisis created. But let's fast forward 2 years. They've now replaced two GMs, right? De La Fuente entered to his new job last year. They've replaced him this year. They are, the contracts just on the coaches it's uncanny. They're still paying, like, from what we know, according to the various reports and our sources, depends how you want to look at it, like $5 million just in that. Tyrese Rice's contract with the buyout exceeds like the $3 million, I think. And that's the guy sitting in the Barcelona B team. They brought Vesenkov on a €2 million deal, 4 years, which means $500K per season for him just to sit on the bench, be the the most decorative part on the bench. It's like, he could have been the Christmas mistletoe, but, nobody actually tries to let him do what he does best. And that actually irritates me, I gotta admit.
Actually, I gotta cut in here and admit something I was thinking for a while, but I feel I'm wrong about now. Because you just say, they're just like, hanging around a bit too long with Navarro. But like, you're listing off so many things. You can't put this down to they have one old shooting guard. Because at least at Spain, you can kind of go, why were they giving him the 6 minutes to start every game in Eurobasket when he was clearly like not up to that standard anymore? But with Barcelona, like, it's like, you can't put it down to that like one glaring error, because there's a crap ton of glaring errors way bigger than like looking to give JCN not big minutes but relevant minutes. It's a case of there's just like like because I used to say this goes back to even like the Printadis three to win that series. You could argue was the beginning of the end of this Barca team, but to be honest, like crikey, no, like that's being way too kind of what Barca has done to itself over the last two and a half years. Like when they moved on from Xavi Pascual, it probably was the right time to move on from him. But it's like they found the worst possible way to move on from him. It's like, well, yeah, like Xavi's game was tired at the club, fair. Like he'd had a long stint there, and it wasn't going to get better anytime soon. But if there was going to be a decline, it was going to be a pretty slow one. Whereas Barca just, wow, like this is just a freaking disaster.
No, I agree, but the thing is, first I was about to get to the Navarro part, so thanks for that, because we can, in a way, it's like trying to hold on as much as you can to what was a glorious career, to what was the guy that, like, when you look at Madrid, you say that Yui is probably Madrid, right? Like, he's the guy. When you think of Real Madrid, he's the first name pops to mind. Obviously, nowadays, Doncic might as well, but you know where I'm getting with it. I think
of course.
I think that the same thing could be said about Navarro, because he's pretty much the only relic from the good old days. From the Barcelona winning the EuroLeague team in 2010, it was, I believe.
And he is the only reigning guy at the roster. Yeah, you're right in that one.
So, sometimes the sports romance, and we're lucky enough to be able to, step aside or take a step back and look from a different perspective. When we are victims of romance in sports, that is usually when the price to pay is the highest. Take a look at what Maccabi did this season. They've pretty much replaced everyone. No one stayed besides Itai Segev. No one stayed besides that. That was,
And like there were moves they had to make. And the thing is, though, in fairness to Maccabi, there was nobody who was as commercially valuable off the court, so to speak, in terms of actually selling tickets as Navarro. Having that commercial, or at least getting eyeballs on the TV, because Navarro has that rep as sort of, the local great. There was no one really in the side, that really fit that bill.
There was Devin Smith. That's how I know that, like,
True.
everyone saw him that way, because
He was definitely like a respected, reliable Maccabi guy, but he hadn't got that sort of, face of the franchise factor that, which very few players do have, in fairness. Most clubs don't have a face of the franchise guy, but Navarro was it, and still to a degree is it for Barca. But, like, you look at them, then you look at Valencia, and the difference. Valencia having a terrible EuroLeague season is not seen as a disaster. It's bad for them, but it's not disastrous.
they have excuses. That's the thing, because
And they have far better excuses, not least of which is like the huge amount of money advantage Barcelona has over them, for obviously being the biggest excuse.
they have Barcelona's excuses from last year. That's the thing. They are still missing Antoine Diop. They are still missing Latavius Williams. They had even Dubljevic out for a few games. So it's like they're experiencing the alleged growing pains in the EuroLeague season that everyone's experienced and at one point or another. But you look at them, and you look at Milan, and it's not like, when you compare what happened with Milan, it's pretty much the same with Barcelona. When you look at changing Coach Repesha with Pjanigiani to the point where they've replaced Pascual with Bartzokas, the money they've paid this year just to bring and to build perhaps the shiniest roster they've had in recent years, and then
money they've paid to stink.
Pretty much. And it's just now that you realize that, do you remember? Well, obviously you do. When we were sitting down in the Final Four at the opening press conference, we asked Coach Obradovic back then, about the entire process that his team, that the club, the entire Fener franchise went from. The point when he arrived from perhaps losing miserably at the beginning, then the next year, Final Four, semifinals, then the next year after that, another Final Four, then he loses the finals, and then finally winning it all. And for teams that have experienced colossal failure, because that is what Barcelona, that is what Milan, that is what even Maccabi experienced the year before, you have to understand that putting bucket loads of money ain't gonna solve it. You really gotta have a process, as much of a cliche as it sounds. And it's something they didn't understand. It's like, you think that when you have the shiniest roster and no chemistry, it's gonna eventually work out, but it didn't. For neither one of them.
You need balance in a roster, I think, and it's a lesson being learned, I think, harder in this new format of EuroLeague as well, where there isn't as much chance, so to speak, to results because of it being a 30 game rather than multi-tiered season. You can't rely on hoping you get hot at the right time or whatever. You've got to keep it together for extended periods in this format, and that's going to hurt. That's going to cost you if you haven't got the right balance in your roster. Aris, I just want to jump over to you though about Efes, because Milano, we kind of know the problems. Valencia, we know the problems. Barca, oh my word, we discussed the problems. But Efes, they're the one team who normally, when the chips are against them based on past history, you can't count them out. But I think this time, I know me and Moshe are agreeing, you kind of have to count them out now, Aris, don't you?
It's obvious that they have lost precious time, and I don't know if Ataman can work out a miracle or something in order to make a first click. But like in the case of Barcelona, I think that it's only about chemistry, and sometimes you may stumble upon chemistry when it's the least expected. Probably in the case of FS, things are simpler than in the case of Barcelona, which is quite the puzzling situation. In theory, Barcelona should have been much better. Anadolu Efes has to play better defense. They should start from that, because they have the players to do so, they have the big men to do so, and they can rebound. So they should start from defense. I believe that if they can get some things down in defense, then everything else will click. And probably offensive production will never be an issue for them. So let me repeat once again that it's all about defense.
So, Aris, going back to you again on this one, the only team, well, here's a nerdy one, with a 6-0 record in double round weeks is Oli. And I suppose your thoughts on the performances going 2-0 the past week?
Olympiacos is quite the opposite of the teams that we have talked before. And the reason is chemistry. There is a sense that no matter who is playing for Olympiacos, they will bring their A game, and no matter who is missing, the team will cover their absence, and nobody will understand who is missing because of the result. And the results are what Olympiacos is all about at this point, because frankly they are missing many key players, and it's a testament to the team chemistry, and also to the work of the coaching staff and Coach Sferopoulos in particular. The emphasis on defense and on little things is the saving grace of Olympiacos. Of course, add to that some very big shots made from Spanoulis, or from Pridezis, or from Yannis Strelniaks, or from Kostas Papanikolaou, and you get the right mix. But the confidence of Olympiacos can be considered the thing that separates them from the rest of the competition. Against very strong opponents like CSKA Moscow, they have proven that they will always find the way that Barcelona and Anadolu Efes can't find.
And like Moshe, obviously that's how Aris read last week, but I suppose you're the guy who pointed this out to me before they started the broadcast at earlier, the only 6-0 team in double round weeks. So what do you read into this consistency really with them, like when it comes to sort of, the heavier game load?
I think that it comes out of, first of all, sending message to Europe. Because last year they were good enough to make it to the finals, and this year they want to win it all. I don't know for how long V-Span is going to play. We don't know what's left also with Printezis. For how long does he want to play? And, for us, first of all, we're basketball fans before everything else, I think. And when we have such dominant and nice guys that, you want them to go in the best way possible. You want them to be remembered not for what they did so great 5 years ago now, I think. Yes, 5 years ago. So it would be nice to see them actually winning it just as much as every team, but it's going to be more special. For us media people, it's going to give an extra something when the tale of this season will be told eventually. In a way, I think it's a message. It's a clear message of saying we don't take any game lightly. Fatigue doesn't play any part. Injuries don't play any part, because as we've mentioned throughout, Olympiacos managed to lose Agravanis. They've lost also Kim Tilly. They had Spanoulis injured not that long ago. And they've even had to shut down Manzaris for a few games. And, you see where I'm going with it. They don't let anything, whether it's injury woes or whatever, nothing is going to bring them down. It looks like right now they are the most, I don't want to say the most focused team, because obviously every team is focused in its own success path, but it's something different. It's like...
the team has got it most together, essentially, right now.
Yeah, but it even, I think, more than that, even more than playing together, having the great chemistry, it's like they're saying, we want this. We know what it takes. We don't know when are we going to be next in such position. I mean...
Well, hang on. We do know when they're next in such a position, as long as Billy's there, because every time Mrs. Spanoulis gets pregnant, Vasilis Spanoulis goes to the Final Four. Like, that's actually a fact. So next time his wife is pregnant, they'll go in the Final Four. If she's not pregnant this year, they aren't going to the Final Four. It's like... The
thing is, I believe that when he won, he had boys. That's how the story goes. But after I'll finish, we'd have to ask Aris about that, because he'd probably know better. But It's like he said. I mean, it's like I said before. I think they are even thinking that. I mean, for how long can we keep this up? I mean, we're not getting any younger. And as much as I think that I understand some of the mentality, if it was up to them, they'd play pretty much till 45. And, both of them would kill games. Billy gonna Billy. V-Span is gonna, or either V-Span's gonna deliver the ball to Printezis, who's gonna knock down another three-pointer just to send Barcelona home and them to the Final Four, and Olympiacos to the Final Four. But it feels like it's time, and I think this is even a more impressive Olympiacos, a more complete Olympiacos than the one we saw in Madrid 2015 and the one we saw last year. And that even makes them, I think it makes them even more scarier than what we actually comprehend at this particular moment.
So, Aris, just correct us there on the situation of Vasilis Spanoulis' fatherhood. What kids were what titles, so to speak, if you can recall, or as best as you can recall?
Spanoulis has already 5 kids. 3 of them were combined with EuroLeague titles. But okay, that was a good omen while it lasted, but with the years passing and the chances of beating Father Time being ultimately more than slim for everyone, I believe that there is also this kind of pressure this year for Spanoulis and Olympiacos, because Spanoulis intends to play as long as he can, but when you are in a position to be a contender, you don't like to see the opportunities passing by, because you never know if you will get them again, and that can be more crucial than Spanoulis having a 6th kid at this point.
And moving on to a team who's experiencing what either is a resurrection or a dead cat bounce, depending on how the market reads it. Malaga, great news last week, went 2-0. The cautionary tale, that was against Barcelona and Milano, who, earlier in this show, you may have noticed, we've written off their seasons. So, Moshe, I'll start with you here. I'm going to start with me here, sorry. I don't believe it. Yeah, they're 6-8, but I look at, like there's teams with, there's at least one team with a worse record I trust more than them, which is it all, really. We'll be getting to them in a second, but I can't see Malaga, 6-8 for them right now is better than I anticipated, but they did just go from 4-8 to 6-8 by beating 2 abysmally performing basketball teams. Can you see Malaga turning this good week into a good run?
In a way, I know that we can never underestimate Malaga, simply because of their coaching staff, their scouting staff, their video analyst. I'm not trying to take anything away from any other team. It's just that we know that Malaga were never the richest team. They were never the ones who were able to actually land the flashiest names. We also know that some coaches will be remembered by the Panathinaikos fans as instant legends for simply making the trade of all trades in the EuroLeague by giving away James Gist to Panathinaikos for Andy Panko back in the day, not taking anything away, just saying, with the way that James Gist did ever since. So, yeah, I mean, Malaga are known for a lot of things, also for being fighters. They never went down not swinging. And now Coach Plata believes that his team are on a legit path to make history with a resurrection for the ages. They will, however, from what we've learned earlier, that Milos Slavljevic will not join the team in their trip to Tel Aviv, so that needs to take into consideration later on the show. But are they capable? Yes. But what's going to happen if they're going to finish? I believe that if they lose this game, that it's like when you're getting punched with, when you receive a punch that actually takes the air out of your lungs. So it's a tricky one I think that they're not supposed to be a threat to the playoffs, but when you're seeing Baskonia like that, and when you're seeing the other teams with Bamberg, it is possible for them to get a few unexpected wins on the second round, and maybe somehow get closer to the teams that are fighting for the playoff spot.
And Aris, your thoughts there on Malaga as well? Like, can we believe in their fight back?
Yes, and I believe that the way the EuroLeague is built, it's very premature to say at this point that a certain team doesn't have a snowball chance in the playoffs. So, because we are talking about good teams and good players, you don't know when they will react, or if they will get a lucky break, or what will happen throughout the 2/3 of the season that are left. So it's pretty premature to write off anyone, especially if we talk about Unicaja. And when you have Coach Plaza speaking so frankly and saying that yes, we are making playoffs dreams, I will not count them out in any case.
Three other teams who are sort of around Malaga in the standings, all within a game of them either side. Baskonia 7-7, Bamberg 6-8, same record as Malaga, and Zvezda 5-9. Zvezda is a team with a worse record, I trust, more than Malaga, despite having an inferior roster. Right now, Bamberg, they've dropped below 500 heading into New Year, so it's gotten to be a tougher road for them because they've been hanging around 500 for so long. Zvezda, if they even stayed this long into the playoff conversation, we'd have been delighted at the start of the year, but now it's getting to that tough stage. Neither of them's down. Baskonia, of course, is rolling, getting the results they need. I look at these and I kind of go, how long can they all stay relevant? Baskonia, I think, are relevant for the long term. I think they're definitely a playoff contender, no question. And again, we are talking about single, double game differences at tops here. Bamberg, I think, can get enough W's to stay relevant for a while, even though they've got a lot of work to do still in the Bundesliga, so that will take a lot of their attention. Zvezda, you kind of have to go if they have 2 or 3 bad weeks in a row. They're just going to have to switch their attention to the ABA Liga. Moshe, is that a fair call on the overall situation?
Yep, you just pretty much hit the nail on the head. I will say that I do have some fears with Baskonia. Don't get me wrong, I think that in a way the teams that actually managed to catch them at the beginning of the season were, let's say, lucky. And I'm talking about, I think, the first 4 games, maybe 5, because, they didn't have any identity. Now, the biggest problem is that when you look at the, check all of their stats from every game they've played so far, you'd probably see a depth chart that is almost non-existent in terms of, experienced players and everything that has to do with it. So the big question that still remains and hanging above their heads right now is, when you're looking at the minutes that all the other guys are, have to provide and have to deliver, is it going to take a toll? And if so, when are we going to see that overburn starting to affect Baskonia? Because honestly, in such a long season, and especially when you're playing also in perhaps the busiest and I would say one of the most intense leagues in Europe, when will there be any price to pay, if at all? And if there is one, will Baskonia pay it?
So, Aris, your thoughts on those 3 sides there, what we can expect from them going forward as they hit the new year?
I totally agree with both of you, Moshe and Mehmet, because it seems that getting into the playoffs this year is going to be a tough nut to crack for many. But on the other hand, if you take into consideration that we are still counting teams like Barcelona and Anadolu Efes, we have no reason to believe that Baskonia, Bamberg or Zvezda will not try to stick around, at least until the end. And yes, the domestic leagues sometimes are a bit of a strain for many teams, but it's obvious that every EuroLeague game, especially for those teams that they are not piling up wins, it's a great event for the club and also for the fans. So they will not just go down without a fight. The problem is that if some of this team gets to the playoffs, we can really expect them to have real chances for an upset. But that's another talk for a little bit further into the regular season.
And lastly, in this section, a team who's keeping it together despite the obvious injury with a young Mr. Robinson. Khimki went 1-1 last week. In fairness, it was a 1-1 that was expected, a whiff victory at home over Efes, losing on the road at Sheshka. I think we keep this one brief. Like, they're doing what needs to be done to stay relevant while down a key piece. Is that pretty much it, Moshe?
Yep, but not just, because we kind of thought that maybe Khimki would try to bring another big guy. The thing is, when you look at what they were getting from Robinson, right? Who's the guy on the market that's even remotely close of delivering such abilities or such games, or to integrate into the roster without any problem? I'd say probably not a lot, if at all.
That's the classic problem as well, though, with the current situation. The mid-season market has never been as shallow as it is these days with, NBA two-ways and the likes. There isn't that much of a mid-season market anymore at all. The Chinese market has always been one that's been discussed but never really materialized into significant signings at top-end European sides. I think we are moving towards that changing for late season, certainly. But we're playoff bound teams will actually be able to look at Chinese returning players, as in Chinese CBA players, obviously not necessarily Chinese natives at all. But you look at that and you kind of go, well, yeah, Grandma, that's still a thing that's yet to play out. We're talking heavily in hypotheticals essentially here. So when you drop a Robinson, there isn't a Robinson replacement just waiting to be signed.
That's true, but I disagree with the hypothetical because, well, you did mention we're nerds, right? And
yeah, there's no question we are definitely nerds.
And what do nerds like to do, or at least have no problem doing?
Play computer games.
And reading, and we've been reading the EuroLeague bylaws. Yes. So there's a deadline to signing players from around the world. And I'm not talking players that are moving from one EuroLeague team to another. We're talking
From
players...
any
Yes. So that deadline is, you're capable of signing players until the 24th round, which means way down the road. Now, I'm not saying that I don't think that signing a guy in the 24th round is a good move unless you just lost a guy in the 23rd round, so understandably enough. But at least it gives them a bit of time because they've been through probably the worst. They've lost Thomas Robinson in a game versus Fener, and ever since, they've had obviously they've managed to keep their heads above the water, but in all fairness, the teams they have managed to play against were not of the highest of calibers, because after losing to Fener, they played versus Bamberg and Milan and Malaga and Efes and Ceska. So they weren't playing against the strongest, or at least the ones that are considered as the strongest, and the ones they have met, they actually managed to end up losing because they've lost to Ceska, and Malaga was obviously unexpected, and Fener. So when you take into consideration this information, that after all, they might have to go on the market. But with that being said, I really expected them, not because I wanted to, but because of the role that Robinson had. So that's why I guess I'm surprised in a way with their current form, heading into the second round. But just before we do head into the second round, I will say this: they are playing Barcelona in the 15th round.
Oh, so they're going to go 9-6 in the first half of the season. Fine.
Yes.
And that brings us neatly on to the Scouts Notebook, where I can assure you I did no scouting and took no notes last week. So, Moshe, I'm going to leave this one in your capable hands. Starting off with Corey Higgins. I would say definitely a darling of the nerds across Europe, not just within this podcast for quite a while now. Why is Corey special to you this week?
Corey is Corey. You know, besides the thing with MJ, you know, the MJ connection, he's special because, well, starting with being an amazing offensive machine, and it looks like his role is getting bigger and bigger from, you know, for example, from last season, obviously. And he doesn't have any trouble in terms of delivering, which is nice because it looks like, you know, a quiet guy that does his things, and, you know, he can smile at you just like Nando De Colo and just like hit the dagger in your heart with a three-pointer. Now, the 31 PIR that he had versus Khimki was obviously enough, because when Khimki has a Shved on their side, Cheska, you know, they have the luxury of Nando having one not so good offensive night when you see the damage that one Corey Higgins alone can do all by himself. Oh, and one more thing.
Yep.
MJ's the GOAT.
Yes, and that'll guarantee we at least have a few debates on Twitter from people undoubtedly arguing that, in fact, well, whoever you want is the GOAT, just to start an argument on Twitter. And Aris, obviously, the other player we're looking at this week is Tornike Shengelia. Toko, of course, is built up very worthwhile rep as being a guy Baskonia you can't live without. I suppose we're seeing that still a bit more lately. What has it been about his latest performances that have sort of brought him up as being a guy that, like, you know, is just kicking it, basically?
Well, I don't know if I have also to pick a GOAT, but speaking about Toko, he is certainly the leader of Baskonia. There is this crazy rumor about Panathinaikos knocking on Baskonia doors about getting him. I may misuse the word rumors because I have reason to believe the sources behind the news outlet from Serbia, Basketsphere, that reported the news first, and I really don't think that Baskonia will part away at this point of the season with Toko, and the fact that a team like Panathinaikos tried to, let's say, steal him, because Panathinaikos will have to pay dearly in order to get Shengelia, and I believe that this is where the conversation will end. The fact that Panathinaikos was interested, it's a testament to how important Shengelia has become, not only to Baskonia, but I would dare to say also to the EuroLeague. Without many of last season's key members of Baskonia, Shengelia is the de facto leader, and if you look at his numbers, he's having a career season in the EuroLeague. I don't know if he's destined to be stuck, let's say, at Vitoria and continue being the face of the club for the next few years, but his rise is amazing, and he's one of the cases that even if Baskonia doesn't make it to the playoffs, he should be able somehow to make a run for the all EuroLeague teams, because he's that good, he's playing that good at this point.
Okay, so in lieu of Coach's Playbook this week, it's Christmas, it's Christmas, it's Hanukkah. It's a time of miracles, basically, unless you're a festival celebration, which is time to air all the grievances. But we're not doing that. We're bringing joy, we're bringing love, we're spreading it. We're going to go through the 16 sides quickly and find one way to improve each side. We're going to bounce it around. Everybody's going to take different teams. We're going to lead off, though. Moshe Sheshka Moscow, 11-3, leading EuroLeague as we hit the new year. What would you do to make them better?
First question, can we make them even better than that? I'd say that maybe they could have, since Leo Westerman is still not playing, and maybe because of the fact that their entire defense is relying on the guys that are in the front court, and by saying front court, we're saying obviously Kurbanov and, well, obviously Othello Hunter and Kyle Hines. I'd try and maybe perhaps, and again, it's maybe reinforced with a defensive-oriented guard, even though that I'm not so sure that they really need it. I think they are doing pretty much fine, and maybe even start thinking about readjusting for next season.
And Aris, naturally, let's switch you over because the two Greeks are in second and third. You are our man in Athens, Olympiacos, and then Panathinaikos. What would you do to just give them that little bit of a kick in the backside to get them even better?
As you have said, Emmet, they are doing already fine, but for Olympiacos the answer is pretty simple. They need health. If Olympiacos is healthy, then with the current roster, they are a contender, no doubt about it. And for Panathinaikos, they are also doing more than great. They need also some health and a little bit of luck because Kalathis is literally irreplaceable for them. And maybe they need also a big man. We have had this conversation earlier in the season, and I think that also Panathinaikos believe that they need a boost in the front line. That's maybe how the whole rumors and the whole situation with Sengelia came up, even if Sengelia is a forward, not a center.
And I'm going to take the 4th and 5th place teams at the turn here, and it's Fenerbahce and Zalgiris, two very different sides. But two, well, I would say a couple of things. I would actually give them both the greatest possible gift. The finest physios on the planet, because right now they need their key guys to stay so freaking healthy. So, like Jan Vesely, I'd basically find some way to keep him wrapped in bubble wrap for the rest of the season. Obviously, letting him out for games, but only games. Well, not quite that. He has to have a social life as well, or else he'd go crazy. But essentially, keeping everybody freaking healthy. Zalgiris, Bino, of course, has come over. That's going to be very interesting to see how he works out. And basically, I'm just going to, as my gift to them, he shall work out. Moshe, going to bring you to the next two sides, Real Madrid and your local team, Maccabi Fox Tel Aviv. What would you do to make them better? I'm going to hazard a guess what your two options with Real are. You got, it's like one's the front court, one's the back court. So if you had to pick one, what would you do to make life better for them?
Well, I mean, you do know me oh so well, so yes, about Madrid. But first, Maccabi. I think that especially for the fact they've lost Deshaun Thomas, who actually played injured for 19 minutes and a half, almost 20, versus Fener, I would perhaps consider bringing another 3-4 kind of guy that has no problems of coming off the bench. There is perhaps someone in the NBA that could fit this position, or maybe start talking to Barcelona about one Sasha Vesenkov. And, I'm just honestly throwing ideas out of my head. So that's one. With Madrid, I would definitely try to bring Tyrese Rice. And when you ask me why, it's pretty simple. Just think about vengeance. What's going to happen when they're going to meet Barcelona in the, so special Super Clásico. And simply for the fact that, he is experienced. And they do need a guy with experience, European experience, to be honest, who can run offense, who can run fast breaks. I'm not talking about half-court sets. I am talking about running and gunning and doing all the damage, positive damage, obviously, possible. And yes, another 5, because they do need to take the load off their 4s who contribute in the 5. So that way, Randolph, when coming back and, playing both the 4 and the 5, I would maybe take someone from their league. And it's someone that we saw in the Eurobasket, perhaps maybe a Pustovi kind of center. But besides that, I think the most important thing for Madrid right now is to freaking bubble wrap everyone until the end of the season.
Yeah, you got two teams here, Aris, for you. Very interesting thoughts where they are right now. The 8-9 sides, Khimki and Baskonia. So a way to improve both of those as we head into the new year.
Well, let's start with Khimki. If I was a GM, I will probably sign a guy in order to compensate the absence of Thomas Robinson, because he's a key member of the team. Khimki is doing also great without him, but I believe that the lost ground and some games that were lost wouldn't be the same if there was Robinson around or another guy. I get it that it's not easy to find an equal talent that far in the season, but maybe one more body will help. For Baskonia, the absence that they have, and it's a real issue that they got kind of covered with Matt Janning, is the situation with McRae. Practically, they have one guy that he wasn't used so far in the season, and I don't know if it's the time to pull the trigger and add another player, considering the fact that Janning is also there, but probably one more scoring option wouldn't hurt.
And Aris, your last two teams, Olimpia Milano and Valencia.
The contrary is true for Milan. They need a floor general, and maybe Andrea Cinciarini is the answer to that. Maybe he can get an upgraded role, or maybe it's possible that Mantas Kalnietis get back in the rotation, having heavy minutes. As for Valencia, I'm really not surprised about what Valencia did so far, and there is no easy answer. After a great start, they have been piling up defeats, and they seem to be like one trick pony. This is not true if you look at the roster. I believe that Valencia doesn't really need an upgrade. They need just for their players to get better in sync, and maybe improve their defense.
And I'm going to take the next two here. It's Unicaja and Broza Bamberg. Unicaja may be the most milquetoast possible addition. One more starting grade basketball player, or at least heavy minutes grade player. Like, frankly, their issue is depth. It's nowhere where they're not particularly shallow. So if you give them one more player, literally, who can give you 20 minutes, that's such a huge boost to them. I mean, 20 good minutes, obviously, as well. So, frankly, like, one 20-minute grade player worthy of Unicaja Malaga being a contending team for the playoffs. For Broza Bamberg, I'm going to cheat a little here. I'm going to use the bylaws, as Moshe pointed out. Round 24, so, right, okay. We're going to keep an eye on that, and we're going to assume that Broza Bamberg are somehow still a serious playoff contender at that stage. I'm looking not just at EuroLeague, I'm looking at the Bundesliga campaign as well, and who I'd want to sign to sort of get them ready to be able to compete at a playoff side on both fronts, if they're able to play off on both fronts. And it's a player who will be just finished up in China, who is somewhat familiar with the game in Europe. Aaron Jackson, honey, baby, come home, just for a couple of months. You're exactly what the Bamberg backcourt needs as an option there. The defensive presence, obviously, Bringen will be leagues above what the Bundesliga usually faces. And just you're ideally suited to what they need in terms of sort of that grinded out down the final few minutes of games as we hit the latter end of EuroLeague. And so, Moshe, I got two teams for you here. Zvezda and Bartha. Well, do Bartha deserve anything, or I don't know, but what are you giving them?
Regarding to Zvezda, I would like to say that maybe they need a front court reinforcement, or maybe another wing player, because they sometimes have problems with that position. They've added Dylan Ennis, and in a way they are paying the tuition right now, so they would have they would love, actually everyone would love to see what Dylan can provide, because the one thing when you do see him is you realize the guy has size, which when we're talking backcourt, sometimes it's very important, obviously, but still something is missing, I believe, in the front court with the options that they have. I like Lazord, I love him. I do like Bielitsa's resurrection, and also Perantic delivering, but I do think that they need another addition at that in those positions. Now, regarding Barcelona, Emmett, I'm going to surprise you.
Go on.
First of all, I would replace the entire front office, the entire decision-making guys, for changing the coaches, for changing the roster the way they did. And what I would do is I would sign someone on a no-out contract for the GM position. And then because right now Barcelona will find themselves in kind of a problem, because that means that because they fired Pascual and they fired Bartzokas, and I don't know for how long they will keep Ciro Alonso. If he, I'm not saying that I want anyone to get canned, but do you honestly see Ciro continue? Should he lose the next 3 out of 5 games?
I think Cito, well, they might do the classic of you're as good as fired, but we're making you finish the season anyway type job, like they had it with Georgios last year, essentially.
You know what? Then okay, say that he continues till the end of the
But also,
season.
you fired Tito Alonso, you just fired a good coach.
Yeah,
Again.
but they fired a good coach with Bartzokas. It doesn't make any difference. They fired so and you can say that Pascual is okay. You can claim that it was time for them to part ways, but Pascual is a good coach.
Oh yeah, no, but I was saying at the start of the show, Moshe, like with Pasquale, at least if you're, yes, it was time to do it, but also you should have had a plan as to how you were going to do it. Whereas I think it's become quite clear they did not. So yeah, fire away. You're going to fix that for Davos because you have to, essentially.
Yeah, but this time it's not like because De La Fuente never really got the chance to show what he can do long term. He was only there for 1 season. That's my point. I think that Barcelona should. I know that a club of such magnitude, right? They should send a message as always. We're gunning for everything possible, right? For the Liga Endesa, the Copa del Rey, the EuroLeague, whatever title is on the table, we want it. But at the same time, they have to make some long-term decisions, because we're talking about a team that paid a lot of money to Valencia to get Claver, and right now Claver is still struggling, right? Say the least. Like, well, it's not just him; it's the entire team. But that's the entire problem right now. They are expected to replace. They are bound to replace everyone either way at the end. Like, I'm talking front office and maybe coach. I don't know. So I would start sending messages to everyone. Okay, we are on the lookout. We want to build a long-term project, and I think that goes on for the rest of the teams, to be honest, because every team that's doing as well as Barcelona, and they're not doing well, should do the same thing, because there's no way that just look at the decisions they've made. I'm talking. Listen, I like Capone, he's a tremendous shooter, great character. I love Tyrese Rice, but sometimes the pieces of the puzzle, and with the same coach, with a different coach. I'm going to give you an example with. It's not even an example. It's a known thing. Emmett, you're the coach. You're going to build a team according to your vision, correct?
One would hope.
Yes. So that means that if you have a vision and you've been promoted, you found another job that's, I don't know, your dream job, and you left. Now I'm going to bring another coach, give him some of the players you've brought, and expect him to do well with his vision, but with the tools that you've provided according to yours. Would you say that is a bad experiment?
I'd say, assuming everything goes right and doesn't require an awful lot of adjustment, is challenging. Like, we don't see a Xavi Pascual situation as he has done with Pau, most of the time. Like, it takes a lot to turn a team around. So yeah, it's not the smartest thing in the world. Like, you can't do a complete, change of personnel. It's rarely practical. But you have to at least allow for some adjustment.
Which is why I replace everyone. Maybe I would keep some of the players, but some of them we can save now that I don't really see them continuing, and not because of their fault. Again, like, the entire situation there is bad. So clean slate, Operation Clean Slate. You replace everything.
That is quite a bold move. And lastly, that means I have to take Anadolu Efes Istanbul, and I'm going to give them the one thing I can give them: a hug. Because that's all it's going to do them any good at this stage. And on that bombshell, because, wow, that got downbeat towards the end, considering the terrible positions the teams we're dealing with are in, we are going to move on to the games for next week. We're going to pick out the games that are outstanding to us on each of the 2 days, and then we're going to go through our picks. Just going to give you the 8 games before we go into picking the actual our selections. We lead off Fener versus Real, then Zalgiris versus Olympiacos, Maccabi Unicaja, and Valencia Pau, all on the 28th. And on the 29th, it's Khimki Barcelona, FS Bamberg, Baskonia Sheshka, and Milano Zvezda. I'm going to make a controversial, by which I mean anything but controversial, call and say the 28th is a better game day than the 29th because there's only one game I want to watch on the 29th, even remotely. That is the game between Baskonia and Ceska. So that's my game of the day for 29th. My game of the day for 28th, it's a tough call. So because you got two great ones, and of course, you got another. Your third option isn't exactly terrible because it's Maccabi and Unicaja, and it's going to be interesting to see how Unicaja do in that whole trying to get the role going. But I got to go with one of the first two because they're both fascinating, and I'm going to go with the repeat from last year's Final Four, Fener versus Real Madrid. It's the early game. It's the first game of the week, and it's my personal game of the week. And Moshe, onto you. Which two games are you picking?
Well, it's an easy one, actually, because as much as I would love to see Olympiacos play Žalgiris at the Žalgiris Arena in front of a sold-out crowd, which was announced a few good days ago, that's what I saw with a good friend of ours, Donatas Urbunas. So, Donnie, thank you for that information. Yes, I'm honestly going with Fener Madrid. This is perhaps the easiest decision I could have made from in a long time. And the main reason is we know that Madrid, every loss right now could prove to be fatal for them. And when I'm saying fatal, I'm not saying necessarily out of playoffs fatal. I'm saying that could be the difference between for them getting down the road, getting Ceska in a best of 5, getting Olympiacos in a best of 5, or who knows, getting Žalgiris in a best of 5. Like if Žalgiris actually continues this amazing run in which they're in. So Fener Madrid, can Fener lose another game? And at home, can Madrid prevent themselves from going to be in a position where they are 8-7 to finish the first round? Because that by far would be one of the biggest surprises ever. And on the 29th, yeah, I know, even though it's Khimki versus Barcelona, as I've said a few good tens of minutes ago, saying about 60 minutes ago in the 4-minute warning. Just kidding. Well, yeah, Khimki Barcelona may be interesting, but Emmett, as he said, Baskonia versus Ceska, a team that wants to say every time we're number one versus a team who say we want to be in the playoffs. So yeah, all the good reasons why to watch this game.
And to wrap up the show, before we get to our farewells and all the good wishes we're going to be giving you all, Aris, your 8 picks, your winner for each of the 8 games.
It's about the home team, guys, with the exception of Panathinaikos, which I see them winning against Valencia, and probably CSKA Moscow against Baskonia. Look out also for Zvezda against Milano. It's obvious, but Žalgiris against Olympiacos, it's going to be a great game, and I believe that Žalgiris can be considered the favorite because Olympiacos is still missing half of its front line.
And I'll go with mine next. I'm going to go a lot of chalk here. Fener over Real. I'm going to say Oli keep it going, win at Žalgiris. Maccabi over Unicaja. Pau get the road win at Valencia. Khimki over Barca, and I don't think it'll be close. Bamberg with the road win at Efes, I'm going to call. Ceska likewise. Actually, no, I'm going to call Baskonia to shock Ceska. So that's a bit of an upset, even though it's a home win. Milano Zvezda. I suppose I have to go for Zvezda here, really, don't I? It's like much as I, would like to think Milan have got their act together, I know they won't. But I will also guarantee you that game will be fun to watch. So it's Fener, Oli, Maccabi, Panathinaikos, Khimki, Bamberg, Baskonia, and Zvezda I've gone with. Moshe, your 8 picks.
And you went for the 4-4 splits.
Again, I never learn.
Controversial.
I never learn. It's not controversial and stupid are often the same thing.
I made the exact same thing last week, so who am I to judge? And since it went so darn good, I'm gonna go with it again. I'm saying, I'm going with Fener, Olympiacos, Maccabi, Panathinaikos. Yes, Khimki winning, but I want to say surprise and go with Bamberg. Yes, I'm going actually exactly the way you did. Zvezda, I'm sorry. This one might be on me. So exactly as I'm at 4-4 splits. Split. Why splits? We're not doing the splits. Too painful. 4-4 split again.
We're all too big for the splits. So, as always, we at least guarantee some level of interest with our picks. Although, if you are betting based on the picks in this show, why are you listening to this show? Like, have you noticed how utterly unpredictable we are for getting stuff right and wrong? Really, don't use us as gambling advisors. No. But on that, wonderful note, it is time to get on to the wrap up of the show. And obviously, it's been a great support from you all throughout 2017. Really, really does mean a lot to all of us. We are looking forward to joining you all back into the new year, where, given timelines, I'll probably be desperately hungover on New Year's Day doing the recording. This most likely time we'll be recording this one, and so yay for that. If not, we might have some mercy we do in the second, where I'll only be mildly hungover. But thanks to everybody for your support. As always, we do ask you subscribe, because it is the fastest way to get the show. Because we upload at assorted hours. We are recording in 3 different countries. Like, it does have that impact. But seriously, thank you all for your support. It really does mean a lot. And to all of you who are going to see in Belgrade or at other games this year, really do be sure to come over, say hello. We love the company and all that. And as always, you can find me at ballineurope.com, BIE_basketball on Twitter, and the Ball in Europe YouTube channel. And early New Year, we'll actually have some new content on that, because I'm off to the Irish Basketball Cup semi-final weekend, which is basically me getting cold in Cork for a couple of days. Aris, if you want to say anything to everybody before you go for the new year, feel free, and tell them where to find you.
And from Athens, have the greatest possible holidays, get some rest, watch some basketball, and you can find me as always on Eurohoops.net, on our social media, and on my personal social media on Facebook and Twitter, and you can see me or hear me when I'm commentating games for Cosmote TV.
Well, there's a lot of things I would like to say and do, but it is part of my New Year's resolution, so I would keep that in mind that, that's not for now. Anyways, with all that being said and done, guys, we're wishing you all, on the behalf of the entire Sweet 16 crew, and all the guys that are showing the love, and to everyone else who have yet to be exposed to this awesome show, thank you so much for tuning in throughout a season and a half, Emmett. We're practically there. So again, guys, thank you so much for tuning in and being with us, and listening to us, but not necessarily accepting our advices in terms of predictions. Regarding everything else, we're spot on, exactly on the 4-minute mark. And yes, to everyone, Happy New Year, happy holidays, times of joy and good news, and we're wishing you guys all the best in the world. So, with that being said, tune in, spread the love. Come on, you know it, you love us, we love you back. So why not? Till next time.